What's on your T-shirt? Our future, our choice. Those who have to live with Brexit don't want to. Not entirely accurate on the polls, but there we are. Femi, who won yesterday and who lost?
Yesterday, we didn't get the meaningful vote, which means that Parliament has less of a hand in making sure that the deal that comes back in October is a decent one. And that I feel it's not good for parliamentary sovereignty, in my view.
But this is interesting, isn't it? Because lots of Brexiteers are very unhappy, and yet Remainers are unhappy. It's a unique ability from Theresa May to make both sides as unhappy as each other. Maybe that is her cunning tactic.
Well, that is the common theme. I mean, our future, our choice. We've been touring the country and asking Brexit voters, especially, how they feel if negotiations are going, and they all say terribly. Nobody seems to be happy. Not Brexiters, not Remainers.
I'm not happy.
Yeah,
doesn't mean I don't think it was the right decision.
But if we're not happy with the way things are going, calling the ultimate destination the will of the people doesn't seem really accurate.
I would argue the argument would be to just do the negotiations better. But the question is, would a meaningful vote from MPs and peers in Parliament, the unelected lords having a say, would that in any way actually mean that we got a better deal? Because surely with the EU, as a point I just put to John Whittingdale, if Barnier, Juncker and everyone else, they all know that, look, no deal's not an option. Load of Remainers in the Lords, load of Remainers in the Commons. They're not going to allow no deal. So if we don't get a decent deal, we won't just crash out, as that phrase people use, and leave without a deal. We'll basically stay in under some auspices of the European Economic Area. Basically, we'll be as George Digby-Jones said on my show an hour ago, we'll be a vassal state of the EU.
Yeah, there's this misconception that what we do here is changing the position of the EU. How much has the EU position changed?
Not one jot.
Exactly. So the notion that that changing the options that we're willing to accept here is going to affect their position over there is just wrong. In fact, I went to Brussels last week and spoke to Michel Barnier personally, asked him, are Remainers changing or strengthening your negotiating position? He said categorically no. Our position hasn't changed since the start, since you triggered Article 50. Our position is based on the fact that we won't compromise on the single market.
And it's been very obvious they've not moved a single inch, and our government has been moving constantly. I think one thing all the Remainers and Leavers can agree on is that these negotiations have been handled absolutely spectacularly badly. The Matt cartoon in the front of the Telegraph today says that the government lives to surrender another day. Is this not? Do you not even as a Remainer do you not see this as Britain effectively surrendering control? The people took back control. Whether you were for or against what happened in the referendum, or for and against there being a referendum, it was voted for by MPs before and after. Article 50 was triggered with a vote from MPs. The people voted. Yes, it wasn't a 90% for leave. It was 52-48, but 52 is still, last time I looked, haven't done my maths O-level for a long time, but still more than 48. Do you not think that, though, that this is just something that there is a democratic importance that matters more than any particular trade deal?
Well, that's the thing. You're absolutely right. People voted to take back control, and I entirely support them in that endeavour. But the question is, are we taking back control? What's happening? What's been agreed so far is that Theresa May says we'll be following the rules of the EU, but no longer having a say in them for the first 2 years. And then after that, and I quote, the UK will have to make a firm commitment to make sure that its regulatory standards remain as high as the EU's. That commitment in practice means that our regulatory standards will remain substantially similar in the future. That means copying EU laws but no longer having a say in them.
No, a similar standard. But our regulatory standards on many things, including animal welfare, are already higher than they are in the EU.
Because the EU has set minimum standards.
But if we're only just following EU regulations, we would have the minimum, wouldn't we, as opposed to having higher standards?
The EU sets minimum standards, but in most areas the laws are harmonised at the EU level because we've made laws together. But the point is, when she says we will make sure that regulatory standards remain similar, she's saying we're going to be copying EU law, which is precisely what the EU Withdrawal Bill is intended to do, copying EU law into UK law to avoid legal barriers to trade. That's the whole point.
But many would argue, and I think Remainers as well as Leavers, that what is looking like is on the cards now, this sort of European Economic Area plus EEA plus, as been talked about, effectively a sort of a Norway deal, sort of. But basically we will be taking rules from the EU, but without having any say. We won't have trade deals outside of the EU. We won't be able to control our borders. These are very big issues for a lot of people who voted for Leave and Remain, who feel that, well, their views are going to be ignored. Leaving aside all the nitty-gritty detail, and my goodness, I want my government to be going into some of this detail, but for an awful lot of Leave and Remain voters, this is just about democracy. This is about the people being given a say, the people having their say, and then that say being ignored. Do you not think that the threat to trust in our institutions, trust in our voting system, trust in Parliament, that is actually keeping that trust is more important than any particular trade deal?
Yeah, absolutely. And if we have a situation, I mean, people didn't trust the establishment. They didn't trust the establishment to work in their interest before. And right now, everything
they're definitely not going to now.
Yeah, precisely.
But aren't you part of that problem?
No, the government isn't acting in the interest of the people right now. Right now, all the government's experts, the people that they're supposed to base their decisions on, are telling them that every possible Brexit scenario hurts the country. Yet they're not even giving the people a vote. Now, there's this idea that it would be undemocratic to vote at the end of the process.
Wait a second, not giving the people a vote. We had a vote. We've had a meaningful vote.
Yeah.
It was on July.
Yeah,
it was on June the 23rd.
We had a vote in 2016. Did we know the deal back then, or are you saying that we voted for absolutely any deal, that we were happy to hand carte blanche over to the establishment, saying you decide what our future relationship with the EU is going to be? We don't really care. Did you say that people in 2016?
I don't think it was people don't care. I think that people accept the fact that it's governments that negotiate these sort of deals rather than ordinary people, because we simply don't have the expertise. It appears the government doesn't have the expertise either. But this is the key thing. You want to have a people's vote. It's being called. It's a second referendum. I know the name on this just to check, because you're convinced things are going so badly that the vote would now change if people were given the choice of remaining in the EU.
Well, as I said, when we talk to people, especially in leave areas, we've been in Darlington, Hull, Swansea, the one common theme is most people don't think this is going well. They think it's going in a direction that is going to lead to something that's going to actually be a loss of sovereignty relative to EU members. And they've called it disgusting.
Well, I think I'm absolutely appalled. I could burst into tears on a daily basis on how badly it's going.
So if the direction isn't the will of the people, surely the people should be able to say something about that.
But aren't people like you, like James McCrory, like George Soros, like all these other people who are campaigning for a second referendum, campaigning to stop us leaving the EU? I mean, look, everyone said it was just the Supreme Court, Parliament having a say. When Parliament had its say and triggered the Article 50, they moved on to the next thing. Whatever concession the Remainers are given, they ask for another one. These are Remoaners. You're a Remoaner, not a Remainer. You want to overturn the EU referendum result from 2016. Don't you think that part of the problem is that Theresa May's hands, as incompetent as she's been, but her hands are being tied by those who are still campaigning to overturn that democratic decision? And actually, if you guys were sort of, on board with trying to get the best deal, we would have got a good deal by now.
Last I checked, I'm not in the cabinet meetings. I haven't really been on David Davis's team. So my influence on Theresa May's negotiating strategy, fairly minimal.
But the fact she constantly has to look behind her to people like the Ramonas. Why? Because she's afraid of losing because she's got such a small majority.
Well, she's got a small majority. Also, she needs to recognise, I mean, surely, is she just supposed to represent the 52%, or is she supposed to represent the whole country? Which, by the way, if you take on things on average, nobody voted for an extreme Brexit. If you have a 52,
What's an extreme Brexit?
An extreme Brexit where we have no deals, cut ties completely from the EU. That was not what was on the ballot paper. Every single Brexit campaigner said we will get a better deal, a better relationship with the EU. The notion that we should be cutting ties completely, that no deal is a real option, that's just not what was promised in 2016.
I've got to be honest, I'm a Brexiteer, and I know I probably know thousands of people who are Brexiteers who've been in touch with me who would happily have no deal over staying in the EU.
That's not what people were promised in 2016. Nigel Farage.
They also weren't promised an EU army, if they stayed in the EU, were they?
The EU army isn't something that we would ever be forced into. Defence policy requires unanimity, so that again was just Project Fear on the Leave side. It literally can't be changed because that's the treaties. It's written in the treaties, and for that to change,
the treaties have never been changed. Ever.
They require us to agree to the treaty change.
But only if we vote the right way. Okay, I'm going to have to leave it there because time is against us. Do you think, just finally, Femi, you've been campaigning on this? One of your campaigns, of course, also basically as more and more people who were 16 and 17 become 18 and get a chance to vote, the vote would have changed because people like me who are 50, we're going to die off sooner than you, which I've always thought was a delightful, lovely thought. Do you think Brexit's going to happen?
I think we're heading towards a situation where a rubbish deal gets presented to the people, a deal that actually robs our sovereignty, and I think that people will reject that in their droves.